So now we're going to talk about teaching your dog to give you reflexive eye contact. So what that means is your dog learns to look at you for guidance and permission as a reflex, not as a cue where you're going, watch me, because if you're out in the world and your dog is staring at the squirrel, all the watch me's in the world are not going to help. You need a dog that walks along and just for no good reason says, hi mom, and walks along and says, hi mom, and walks along and says, oh, there's a squirrel. Hey mom, there's a squirrel. What do you think we should do about that? And it's up to you to then say, oh, would you like to go to the tree and see the squirrel? Let's walk there politely and we can do that. So to create this reflex, we're going to play a little game called Made You Look. So I have some yummy treats here in my hand, and you can see my friend Athena here is sitting down, because that's what every dog will do when you have something they want. So you'll start the game by putting the treats to her nose, and she sat down, and she stood up. Good girl. Yes. And she gets that treat. Yes. So I'm saying yes to her because she's making direct eye contact. She's looking me right in the eye. Yes. 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 All done. Turn around, walk away. All right, so you could see her moving around a lot there and occasionally looking at my hands. I didn't mind that she went from a sit to a down or back to a sit, but all that moving around was also about her trying different things to get the treat. So if your dog nose down or nose paw or knows anything, well, she's going to run through her little panoply of tricks trying to get you to give her that treat. But she's not going to get it until she looks you right in the eye, at which point you say yes. And then you'll move your hand and you'll give her the treat. You are not trying to put the treat in her mouth when she looks at you. You're just marking it with your yes so that her brain notices what she's doing. And what she's doing is looking at you. And now the treat follows. Okay? So, Made You Look does 4 things. The first thing that it does is it teaches her to look away from the distraction that I've created. If you stand in front of your dog with a treat in your hand, or if there's something on the counter that your dog wants, your dog is absolutely going to look at that thing and look at you, and look back at it and look at you, telepathically saying to you, give me that thing and move it toward my mouth. But when you put 2 hands to her nose and you create a distraction, now she has to actually look away from the distraction to look at you to get the thing that she wants. Second thing that the game teaches her is that you're the problem solver, because the problem was very clear. I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. How am I going to get that? Maybe she jumps. If your dog jumps, don't make your hand go higher. That just tells the dog to go higher. You just turn your hand back as though the hand is saying nope, and just move it away from the dog. All right? If your dog barks at you, you can just look away from the dog. Your dog is nicely sitting quietly, looks you in the eye. Yes, here you go. Oh, problem solved. All I had to do was look at mom or look at dad, and I got what I wanted. Third thing the game does is it teaches your dog that when they hear yes, whatever they are doing right in that moment is the right thing, and the reward is coming. It's the same principle as clicker training. I prefer to use my voice rather than a clicker because I may not always have a clicker. I will always have my voice, and I want my dog to respond to my voice. I'm not saying good girl or good dog because as we teach skills to our dogs and we want to start fading the treats away, we're going to replace that with affection or praise. We say good dog to our dogs all the time, not for any particular action. So yes is a marker that tells your dog, oh, I did an action. I heard the yes, I got a reward. And once they make this correlation, we can teach them anything that doesn't require opposable thumbs. This is how I teach dogs to help people in wheelchairs. I'll tell the dog, go pick up the bag. and the dog goes out and sniffs everything on the floor, and when it gets to the bag, I say yes, and the dog says, oh, I know what that means, and comes back to me to get the treat. And we practice that until every time I say, go get the bag, the dog makes a beeline for the bag and touches it with its nose. And when it's doing that reliably, I'm going to up the game. I'll say, go get the bag. And the dog runs over there and touches the bag with its nose and expectantly looks at me waiting for the yes, and I don't say anything because now I want the dog to put his mouth on it. And so the dog will try some things, and when he puts his mouth on it, yes. And now he comes back and he gets the treat. So once your dog understands that yes, we can teach him anything by shaping the behaviors that we want. And we don't need to use negative markers saying to the dog, no, don't do this, no, don't do that, because we have a very clear way of letting the dog know what we do want the dog to do. And that's useful information. Just saying no doesn't help your dog to know what you want instead. Final thing the game does, as soon as you hand your dog that last treat, while he's taking it from you, you're going to go, all done, and you're going to turn around and walk away. So this accomplishes two things. First of all, if your dog is watching your hands go all done, they are not looking at you again. Because if you just stand up after giving them that last treat and your dog looks at you again and you go, sorry, I don't have anything, the dog says, wait a minute, I just looked at you 8 times. And every time you said yes and you handed me a treat. And now I'm looking at you a 9th time and you're telling me you don't have anything? How can I trust you? Why should I ever look at you again? So we want our dogs to trust us. So we're setting it up so the dog cannot look at us, and instead we give them a cue and we disengage by walking away. And this helps the dog understand that we are done and they don't have to look at us again. So whatever training exercise you are working on, when you are done, you want to let your dog know, all done. Now they're on their own time, they can relax, they can go take a nap, they can go play with a toy, whatever it is they want, now they're on their own time. And this also applies if you're playing with your dog with a toy. So let's say you're playing, you hold up the toy, you wait for the dog to sit. Yes, good dog, take. And you throw that toy. So again, there's saying please, there's getting permission, just like with the food and just like with the door. You're done playing with the toy? All done. Drop the toy on the floor, don't start a new game, and you walk away. And now you don't have a dog who's following you around, hitting you with their paw or jumping on you or barking at you because they want more. They know you're done and you're not getting any more. They're not getting any more. All right, so you're going to play this game with your dog, 6 to 8, soft, small, chewy, healthy treats, or 2 to 3 minutes, whichever comes first. I really like to use actual dog food. This is Natural Balance food roll that I've cut up into pea-sized pieces. Sadly, Natural Balance is no longer making this, but there are other similar products. So just make sure the food has no corn, no wheat, no soy, no byproducts. It's healthy proteins and whole fruits and vegetables like this stuff is. And the reason I like to use food is because you can play this game with your dog 20 times a day if you want. But if you do that, you're going to be filling them up with a lot of food, so you're going to want to cut back on how much kibble they get. And you want to make sure they're still getting all their nutrition. So you don't want to fill them up with cookies, even if they are very healthy cookies, like the stuff you get from Zooks or Pet Botanicals or Blue Buffalo. Those are all very healthy cookies, but they are not a complete and balanced food that has the proteins, has the fruits and vegetables, and has all those supplements that your dog needs as well. All right, so you'll play 6 to 8 treats or 2 to 3 minutes, whichever comes first. So right now, there's no question in my mind that Athena would go through all the treats in under 3 minutes, no problem. She's very focused, she's very food motivated. But let us say that while we were playing, the Amazon Prime man or the UPS man came to the door. And she ran over to that door to go check that out while we were playing. I'm not going to call her back to me. I'm going to follow her over to the door. I'm going to put my hands to her nose. I'm going to stand up. And I'm going to wait to see if she re-engages with me. And if she does, I'll wait for her to sit down. I'll say, good girl. Now I'll look her in the face and we will continue playing. Something else happens. She gets distracted again. I have to do it a second time. But again, She re-engages, she goes back to playing. So maybe now we hit the 3-minute mark and I still have food in my hands. If that happens, you're going to wait her out to get one more so she can end with a success, if at all possible. You'll hand her the last treat, all done, you'll turn around, walk away, put the food down, but you can now go back to her and play with her, love on her, whatever you want. So if she goes through all the treats in under 3 minutes, or she gets to 3 minutes and gives you one more, all done, walk away, come back because she successfully completed the game. But let's say that she's run over to the door to bark at something, and you go over and you put your hands to her nose and you stand up, and she ignores you. She does not try to re-engage. You'll try a second time, and she's still ignoring you. And you'll try a third time, and she's still ignoring you. Okay, all done. And you're going to turn around and walk away, but now you're going to ignore her for the next 10 minutes. Why? Because in a natural environment where dogs are living with other dogs without human interference, they learn at a really young age that there are rules, there is a code of conduct. It's not anarchy and chaos in the pack. And when they break the rules, they get shut out. So you have the puppy nursing on mom and bites mom with his little growing puppy teeth. Mom pushes that dog away and says, oh no, you're not eating. Puppy is very sorry, comes back, nurses nicely, gets to eat. Now you have puppies who are playing. You have one who's a bully, who's beating up on all the other puppies. Well, the other puppies don't turn around and beat him up in return. They run away, and they refuse to play with that puppy. And the puppy says, oh, no one will play with me. And he comes back, and he's very sorry, and the puppies say, okay, we'll play with you again. But if that puppy is consistently a bully that beats up on the other puppies, all the puppies will learn to avoid him, and he will have no friends. Same thing happens with adult dogs. If they transgress and they break the rules of the pack will shun them and eventually run them off, and without the pack, they die because they can't hunt and they can't defend themselves. So your dog, whether it's a puppy or an adult dog, knows at his core that when you turn your back and walk away and you don't look at him, you don't talk to him, you don't acknowledge his existence for a period of time, he has broken the rules. And he's not going to know right away what he did, but after a little repetition, he will figure that out. He's like, oh, if I don't re-engage, I lose my people completely. So it's not just you who ignores them, it's everyone in the house gives them that same message. So you will initially play this game with your dog only in the house. 50% of the time, put their leash on. Drop the leash on the floor. Having the leash on changes the situation, and as you build this game out into the world, there will be a leash. So if you only play in the house with no leash, when you put the leash on, it will change the situation, and your dog will say, oh, there's a leash on me now. New game, new rules. No. Same game, same rules. Now one day, you'll play this game all over the house with or without the leash. And one day, you'll walk up to your dog, you'll put your hands to her nose, you'll stand up, and by the time you stand up, the dog will be sitting and staring right at you. Yes, here's your treat. Yes, here's your treat. Yes, here's your treat. They hear the UPS guy at the door, they look over, and they look right back at you. Yes, here's the treat. They don't get up. They don't try to solve the problem. They know the right thing to do is to just check back in with you for guidance and permission. What do I do next? Oh, I sit here. Yes, I get my treat. When your dog can do this, with and without the leash on, now you're ready for the next step. If you have a backyard, your next step, or if you have a terrace, any outdoor space, your next step will be at that door. You'll put the leash on the dog. You'll take the handle of the leash and hang it over the doorknob, or if you have a sliding door, you can usually run the leash through the handle and clip it to itself with a carabiner. And you and the dog will walk outside and you'll close the door on the leash and you will play right outside the door. So the dog is still right next to the house. You've raised the bar of distraction by going outside, but you haven't raised it so much by going away from the house. The reason the dog is tethered is so if our friend Mr. Squirrel decides to come out and ask him to do the Macarena, he can't go anywhere. He tries, the leash will stop him because he's tethered. And you can just walk around in front of him and put your hands back to his nose and engage him and go back to playing. He goes back to playing, he goes through all the treats or gets to 3 minutes and gives you one more, all done. Unclip the leash, let him go do the Macarena with Mr. Squirrel. But if all he cares about is going after the squirrel and you try 3 times and he's just ignoring you, okay, all done. You'll grab the leash, bring him back in the house, unhook him, drop the leash on the floor, and ignore that dog for the next 10 minutes. So now, not only does he lose you, he also lost the opportunity to go dance with Mr. Squirrel. When he can play perfectly right outside the door, you're like a human vending machine. Yes, 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 yes. Now you go out into your yard if you have a yard, and you'll tether him to something out there. A piece of furniture, a tree, the fence, whatever works. And preferably play with him at different times in different places of the yard. When he can play the game out in the yard perfectly, now you'll do the same thing outside your front door. You'll hang the leash over the doorknob, you'll go outside, you'll close the door, and you'll play right outside at a quiet time of day. Not when your neighbors are walking their dogs and all the kids are coming home from school. It's quiet, because just being outside in the rest of the world, not their world, is a big enough jump in distraction. Now, your dog can play perfectly there. Go to the end of your walkway or your driveway, tether him to your mailbox or a tree. If you don't have a mailbox or a tree, but you have a car, back your car down the driveway, make a knot in the leash, close it in the car door, tether him to the car. So now you're playing by the street, and when your dog sits right down, yes, 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 yes. Now come back to your front door, tether him, and play when your neighbors are walking their dogs. He can ignore all that. Go halfway to the street, tether him, and play when your neighbors are walking their dogs or the kids are coming home from school. He can ignore all that, go to the street and tether him and play with all those things going on. He's perfect. Start doing it in random places on walks, always tethering him. Because if your dog decides to take off and you're holding the leash, you're going to go flying and you're not going to have any way to get around in front of your dog and re-engage him. Okay? Take him to PetSmart. Play in the parking lot. There's usually those little mediums with trees that you can tether him to. Then go play in the front of PetSmart or Home Depot. Tether him to something near the doors. Then go inside. Tether him to a shopping cart and play in an aisle. Take him to the park. Play far away from the dog park where the other dogs are playing, or the playground where the children are playing. He's perfect, get closer. He's perfect, get closer. Eventually, here's the fence, here's the dogs playing, you're right here, you're playing. I actually play this game with 6 dogs, my dogs, at a time while we're hiking, and there's dogs all around us playing, and they're in the water, and there's squirrels, and all I have to do is call them over and do this, and every dog sits down, and we're going, yes, 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 yes. And I can play with my dogs simultaneously because all of them already know the game. So if you have more than one dog in your home, play with one dog until that dog is perfect, and the other dog. And when both of them are perfect, now you can play with them and go back and forth between them. Now, there is a part 2 to this game. Once you start working with your dog outside the door, you're going to want to continue to work here inside the house, teaching them to hold that eye contact. Because if all your dog does out in the world is go, hello, goodbye, that's not good enough. But that's all we're asking him to do in part 1 is hello. If he looks away after that, as long as you said yes, he still gets the treat. If he looks at you and looks away and you didn't say yes, don't say it late. Only when he's looking at you. And don't go, yes. Because if you do that, he's going to hear you say yes while he's looking at your hand. So you go, yes, blink, hand. Okay? All right. So now he's learned yes, yes, yes. We're going to teach him to hold it. So part 2, hands go to the nose, you stand up, dog looks at you, and you do not say yes. Instead, in your head, you count 2 seconds. 1, 2. Dog didn't look away? Yes. Here you go. But if the dog did this, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You just keep standing there. And eventually the dog is going to look at you and say, hey, I'm looking at you. Look at me looking at you. How come you're not saying yes and giving me the treat? And while he's having this conversation, he's holding the eye contact, and you say, yes. And you give him the treat. And you go right back to this, and you wait for him to hold it 2 seconds again. And when he can hold it 2 seconds, right from the first treat to the last treat, you'll make it 3 seconds. And then you'll make it 4 seconds. And then you'll make it 5 seconds. And just like with part 1, you'll do it 50% of the time with a leash and 50% of the time without the leash. Only in the house. Now, he's perfected 5 seconds with and without the leash. He's turned you into a vending machine outside your back door. Maybe you're working with him in the yard. Maybe you're working outside the front door. You will take him outside your back door. You will tether him. You will put your hands to his nose. You will stand up. And when he looks at you, you'll count 2 seconds. And you'll work him back up to 5 seconds with greater distraction. And then you'll do the same thing in the yard and outside your door and at the end of the driveway and back to the door, and etc., etc. So you're teaching your dog, no matter where you are, no matter what's happening around you, the right answer is you check in with me so that your dog does what my dogs do. My squirrel crazy Great Pyrenees mix, who had never been walked on a leash and never lived in a home when she came to me at the age of 2, now walks on a leash beautifully, and when she sees a squirrel, she goes, "Squirrel, Mom, there's a squirrel there. Can we go see the squirrel?" And you bet, because she asks me nicely, and we walk nicely to the tree, and I tell her, "Check it out," and she goes, "Woof, woof, woof, woof," for 30 seconds or so, and I give her a little countdown and say, "Let's go," and off we go, because she's focused on me. And when your dog checks in with you, is focused on you, they hear you. They don't walk out your door and go into a survival state doing this. And you have created a secure attachment where you are the problem solver, you are the person who gives permission and instruction, you are the parent. So I highly encourage you to play this game with all your dogs, no matter how old, no matter how long you've had them. It'll be fun for them, they love the game, it'll be fun for you, and it's easy to fit it in throughout your day because you're not putting aside 30 minutes or an hour to train your dog. You're doing it for 2 or 3 minutes, and then you're done. Have fun.